Okay, so we're going to begin. We once again are very happy to announce that we have the Association of Washington Student Leaders with us. Director James Lehman and Layla are here with us to begin introducing these amazing group of students that get to talk with us about the future of education and their vision. So I'm going to step back and simply pass it over to James and run things from the background with our student panel. If you can all please say hello in the chat to them. And so James and Layla, I'm turning it over to you, and we're very excited to hear from you.
Well, we're really excited to be here, and like you, I'm really excited just to sit and listen to all of their genius too. Good afternoon. It's afternoon here in Washington State right now. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Lehman, and I am the director of the Association of Washington Student Leaders, Washington State Student Leadership Organization. We really focus on student engagement, student empowerment, and student voice, and today is just a really cool sampling of all of those things. We have different high school students here today. They're just going to drop some knowledge and connect with all of you, listen to all of you, and from you and with you. It's going to be awesome. So I'm going to let Layla introduce herself, and then we're going to bring up the main events. Sherry, I am also from Spokane. I see that in the chat. Okay, Layla, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Layla Jasper. I'm the Associate Director of AWSL. I'm up here at the lovely CISPIS. So excited to have an office space in the forest. It's beautiful. Yeah, I love being a part of this organization that just elevates student voice. Yeah, y'all are in for an awesome session. Great students, brilliant ideas. So thanks for being here.
And with that, we're not going to hear from Layla and I. We're going to dig right in. We're going to bring our first students up to present. They're going to introduce themselves, and then we're going to dig right in. Look at them. This is so exciting. All right. So, Lakshmi, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody? Like your name, what school, your school, your grade, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, so my name is Lakshmi. I'm a rising junior at Issaquah High School in Issaquah. Yeah, I'm pretty much just really excited to share my ideas and hear my other fellow students' ideas.
Awesome. Quentin, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, definitely. My name's Quentin, or Q. I come from Yelm, Washington, Yelm High School, and I'm a rising junior. And yeah, the very same as Lakshmi. I'm just excited to hear everybody's answers and just talk with y'all.
Well, we're not going to waste any time. Here we go. I get to be Oprah again today. I'm so excited. So you two ready? Here we go. Here is the first question for all of you. So what things and maybe practices or just things have you learned over during your time at school? It could be any time during school that you see taking with you into the future beyond high school, because you're going to graduate here in a few years. So what things have you learned during your time in school that have been really important with you, have resonated with you, have connected with you, that you want to take into the future? Either one of you can go first.
Okay, I'll just start. So I think a really big skill that I learned was definitely communication. Definitely when you're a student and you're in high school, you kind of feel like you're all alone and you're the only one who knows what you're experiencing with school and mental health and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to reach out to people like adults or like teachers or just like fellow students sometimes about what you're feeling. And I think that when teachers make it really clear that they're here to discuss and like be open and be more like a democracy and like take your ideas in, it makes you feel a lot more comfortable with sharing, with asking them for like late work extensions or maybe an opportunity to retake a test. And it just makes the learning in a classroom a lot more comfortable and a lot more fun. Actually, it's just a lot more, you just kind of like forget all the things about like, oh, I need to turn this assignment in, I need to like do good on this test, because you know there's a teacher that you can fall back on who will make sure that you are fine and that you can focus on learning, and then all that like numerical and like GPA and stuff like that doesn't matter for the time you're in the classroom because they have your back. So that's the communication. I just think that reaching out to the teachers and the teachers making it clear that you can reach out to them for like the start of class, it just makes like that class like one of your favorites. So yeah.
Q.
Alrighty, so the biggest thing I've learned through this, especially this past year, is time management, and I definitely want to carry that through to my future and really apply that to my life as a whole, because when this past year struck and quarantine happened, you were kind of just by yourself as a student. You had to do your best. Nobody else was going to really tell you, get your work done, get it in on time, do your best, don't slack off. Really manage your mental health, take time for yourself so that you can do your best and do your best work, be your best self, all that jazz. And not having that in the future when you have a job, it can really be detrimental. And I just took on a job in my hometown, and I'm really figuring it out, how to manage my personal life with my work life, and then when school starts, my school life. All those three things need to coincide without getting in each other's way. So definitely time management for me.
Brilliant. So Lakshmi, I got a question for you. When you say that it's really important for teachers to talk about communication and talk about how they can be there for you, what does that sound like? What do you as a student need to hear that lets you know this teacher is here for me? What things could teachers say that really resonates with you?
Yeah, definitely. So I think if I'm taking examples from my own teachers, a lot of times they're the first day of school, they'll be like, here's my email. You can email me anytime of the day. I will get back to you as soon as possible. You can free to email me about anything if you need help on an assignment. Also offering office hours or time after school to help. And then in general, just in class, being a lot more comfortable with the class and not always being super structured. Just making it seem like you're not you're not rigidly a teacher. You're not only a teacher, but you're also there to take in their input. And so kind of asking students oh, how did you feel about that test? Was it hard? Was it the parts that you didn't like? Lots of feedback, taking a lot of surveys and feedback so that students know that what they're experiencing, and they can give input to the teacher, and seeing that actually be carried out and seeing change happen, that makes the students a lot more confident about what they're experiencing, and they just feel more confident that if they say something, that their voice is actually being heard.
I want you to go find a microphone and drop it, because that was a mic drop. That's brilliant. Yes. You're both getting a lot of love in the chat, by the way. People are all about things that you're saying, so you need to check those out. We're going to hear more from these two, but we're going to move to the next question because we got a lot of questions to get from the students. So Quentin's going to stay on, and we're going to bring on Sarnika's coming and Samiksha's coming. All right, Sarnika, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarnika. I'm from Auburn, Washington. I go to Auburn Riverside High School, and I'm a rising senior this year.
And Samiksha, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Samiksha, and I'm from Seattle, Washington. So, yeah. And I'm going into my junior year of high school.
Representing. We love it. Okay, here we go. Question for you three. Here we go. What moves can educators make to embed into what they do every single day to best support students? Basically, what can adults do to be their absolute best for students? All three of you told me you got things for this one, so I can't wait to hear it.
I mean, I'll go first if that's all right. For me, the most important thing an educator can do is be an educator, not an instructor or a teacher. I like that wording as educator. Take their own creativity into the fold. And I know that they have to acknowledge curriculum and push that through as much as they can and get us ready for state administrated testing. However, I like seeing a teacher or educator's personality shine through their education and what they are passionate about and what they want to get us ready for in life. just in general, not these like standards that a student has to meet. We're all people, and we need to be prepared for life after these requirements in school life. So just teachers and educators and people in that lifestyle of helping young people get ready for life, be themselves. Like, you tell us to be our truest self, but then when you aren't yours, it's hypocritical, and it makes you seem like you're trying to push an agenda, I guess. So my favoriteest teachers, that's not a word, favoriteest, but my most favorite and enjoyable teachers are the people that have been a friend to me before they've been a teacher or instructor. They've been an educator and a friend.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think I haven't been in school for like a year and a half, so I'm trying to like remember like what's it like being like with a teacher. And the teachers that I remember and probably will remember for the rest of my life are the teachers that didn't just shove down curriculum in my throat. That weren't like, oh, here's how to find like, you know, the slope of Y or whatever. I don't even know the term anymore. But, looking back now, like my math teacher from freshman year, like that was such a good experience, and I didn't really view them as like a teacher. Not to say I was disrespecting them, but they kind of met me at like, and we were like equals, and they were like, they would stay after school, communicate, and I think communication is a huge key for like anybody's success. And like, I can go on, like I can do a whole talk on that, but I think just being able to not only pay attention to what you're teaching and meet the students at what they need and stuff like that, and how you teach your class, and also the creativity of that, and not just do it as a textbook style. Really bring in your own views and your own ways and your own like creativity to it. Really makes, I think, you as a human being like come alive. Like you don't need to be a robot. Like, if we wanted that, to then just put robots out. Like we probably have that technology. Like we want a teacher who can really be their authentic self, and we can too. So like I hope I'm making sense, but like that's kind of what I think the answer for me would be.
And adding on, I would say the biggest thing, in my opinion, is acknowledgement. I think this past year, the most helpful teachers were the ones that acknowledged that students were struggling overall in general. And when teachers acknowledged it, it made students feel heard and a lot more comfortable. And I know that the 3 teachers I talked to outside of just school stuff were the 3 teachers that acknowledged that I wasn't like doing the best with my classes because of COVID. And I think it's so important going back to the transition into school now, that when educators and teachers actually acknowledge how a student is doing outside of, whether or not they're getting an A or a 4.0, but like how they're actually handling things, then it makes students feel like they can talk to teachers about anything. And I think at the end of the day, going back to what Samiksha said, communication is super important. So when students and teachers have that mutual relationship and they can confide in each other, then it obviously makes things better.
So from the 3 of you, like, this is what's so awesome. Like, you 3 haven't ever met, and you all 3 touched on authenticity and acknowledgement, right? That those are in communication are really 3 big cornerstones of what students are looking for from educators. So, and any 3 of you can answer this. So that healthy balance of teaching the curriculum and also creating and maintaining relationships is it can be a difficult dance for educators, right? And so can you give everybody just an example of a class where maybe there was a lot of rigor, but there was also relationships at the same time, and how those two coexisted in the same space?
For me at least, I won't go into like electives teachers because I feel like they have it easy. It is easy to like make a good environment when they want to be teaching their passion and stuff like that. And I get a lot of curriculum teachers like math and science and ELA don't really get that creative freedom all the time. But I had a math teacher that was my first period, and you're coming in at like 7 a.m. You're tired or you're sleepy or whatever, but she would always be super energetic. She'd keep the lights like low and like kind of like roomy. It'd feel nice in a room, not like kind of like arid and cold like some classrooms can feel sometimes. And so it was just like a homey vibe in there. And you like sometimes she'd play music at the start. She sometimes also had like coffee that you could make in class. And she would always ask us like how we were doing. Oh, and motivational Mondays, she would play motivational videos on like the projector for like the first 5 minutes, get us ready for the week and get us ready to learn math, which personally is my least favorite subject. And it really was just the funnest time in her class and made math all that much better to learn.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't want to talk about my teachers this year because I mean I respect them and they were great, but it's a little bit different since they were online. But freshman year, I had a history teacher. She was amazing. Unfortunately, she did have to leave my school, but she had a whole like coffee, tea, food station. She had like candy. And I'm not saying, bribe your students. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, but the way she taught her class was just amazing. She was really flexible. Like, she really didn't have a seating chart unless things got out of hand. She was always there. And I really loved how she, ran her classroom. She had like little pieces of paper that said like, oh, if you need to talk to me, just give me this. And it was very like subtle and just stuff like that. Just like, she wasn't like, I'm the teacher now, listen to everything I have to do or else, I'm gonna like expel you or whatever. It was nothing like that at all. She was amazing. And I still talk to her to this day because of the impression she had on me. And I mean, I loved the subject. I love history, like that type of stuff. So we kind of bonded over that. But not just that, everybody succeeded in her class because of the way she taught and because she didn't really, I mean, she did go up to district standards or something, but she really took it into her own hands to make her classroom comfortable, welcoming. And her door was always open. Always open. I never saw that door closed. And that just a feeling of having your door open is just a welcoming feel. Be like, oh, a teacher there during her prep period, door open. Nobody's like wandering the halls, and probably if you are, you should be in your classroom. But just that feel and how she taught was just really like a warm, welcoming thing. And that was a really good teacher subject. And I love that class. And to this day, I'm like, all teachers should look up to her. So, yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll share an online experience that I had this past year, which was pretty unexpected because I honestly didn't see myself getting to know my teachers at all because, all virtual learning. But my AP seminar teacher, she started doing weekly check-ins and she did daily check-ins. And she just asked us how we were all doing. And then sometimes when we had assignments due, she would tell everyone like, oh, be honest, like, have you started? Have you not? Like, it's due today. And it would be anonymous, but she would see how many people have or not. And then she would go, you guys deserve the weekend because it seems like everyone is stressed right now with their other classes. So we can like pick this back up on Monday. And I thought it was really interesting that she first took the time out of her class time to talk to us about how we should be taking more time for ourselves. And then second, she was completely okay that none of us were meeting the deadline because she was like, no one's going to do their work well if you guys aren't taking care of yourselves. So I'd rather you take rest and then revisit your work. And I know that there was times where a lot of students would stay after and we would just tell her that we really can't handle the workload, not because of her class, but because of other classes. And she would just say that's fine. And she would just tell us to focus on our other classes because if we can get those down, then she'll help us with ours. And I know that beyond that, like throughout daily check-ins, she would ask us about things going on outside of school. And like she completely inspired like all of my extracurricular passions. And she's like the reason that I ever like reached out to James in the first place. So it's like she definitely made a huge impact, even through just like, she hasn't ever met me in person, and she's like my favorite teacher now.
You three people, I mean, hope you all are reading the chat, because you all are, you're hitting the heart, you're speaking to it, you're doctoral students, like, already, like, and so make sure, I can't wait for your TED Talk, and we'll all be watching and sharing that. Okay, we're gonna move to the next question. Thank you three. We're gonna keep this ball rolling. Q, you're staying. All right, Jean, will you introduce yourself? Because we haven't seen you yet on the screen today. So Jean, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Jean. I am a rising junior from Union High School down in Camas, Washington. Really excited to be here.
Well, we're excited that you are here. Okay, here we go. Next question for you three. How can educators disrupt and dismantle, like, the status quo in schools, right? And maybe we're talking about equity, maybe we're talking about culture and climate, but how can educators disrupt and dismantle sort of the status quo of just what we see in school? So who wants to go first?
Well, I mean, the first thing that I think about when talking about like disrupting the status quo in our schools is unconscious bias. So, I mean, living in the world that we're in today, it's so easy to start like seeing people as statistics, like this percentage of people from this race graduate high school and this percentage of people from this race doesn't graduate high school. And then once we start seeing students that way, even if it's unconsciously, we start expecting less from some people and expecting more from others. And I mean, there are like so many studies on this, but once you expect more from certain students, they are proven to do better. And once you expect less from a student, they are proven to do worse. And so, I mean, if teachers are expecting less from a specific race or a gender or a specific group of students and expecting more from like another race and another group of people, it's obviously going to cause like some differences in equity in the number of opportunities they have. And so I think really all schools should be about is, I mean, not seeing people as a statistic, but instead seeing them for the students they are, helping to cultivate their creativity, helping to cultivate the skills that they have, and then expecting more of them, like seeing each student for who they are and really helping them become the leader and the person they want to be.
Okay, I guess I can go then. I think so. Though I never personally have experienced like being a student living in Washington, like at least in my area, like finances have never been, at least in my high school, at least it's been never been like openly talked about. And so some students who don't feel comfortable talking about their financial situations, it's hard for them to talk about it because it's not made clear that there's options for them if they're struggling financially. So, for example, what comes straight to my mind is like advanced placement classes or AP classes. Each of those exams, they cost about $100 each. And so if you're a student who's low income and you want to challenge yourself and you want to take those AP exams to get potential college credit, you might end up not being able to because you just don't afford to take the test. And even though there are resources available in schools for students to apply for like a scholarship or like financial aid, they aren't made clear enough from the start. So when I was signing up for my AP exams, I didn't see that there was an option for financial aid until halfway through the year when you sign up for it. Then it shows you there's financial aid. And so that stops students because they don't know about it until halfway through the class. If they never took the class, they don't know that there's an option, right? So I think those kind of things, that there's options for financial aid, needs to be made clear from the beginning of the year, right when course selection happens, so that these students know that they're okay when they take these classes, and they know that if they do take it, they have resources available for them, and it's not something that they have to hear through the grapevine of other students who have taken the classes.
Yeah, so the biggest thing to me in the school systems is, at least in my school, there's been like inequitable problems that have come to people's attentions, specifically administrators, and it seems like they rush to tackle them. And I'm not saying stay stagnant and not to move towards fixing those and to a solution, but don't try and combine problems and then solve them all together. Like I was a student leader helping plan an MLK assembly. And so we were gathering speakers to speak about what MLK stood for. And I'm not saying this is wrong in any way. However, administrators took it under their own like hands to get speakers, and they brought in a I believe non-binary to speak towards some of these things. And I'm not saying that like equality and stuff like that doesn't have anything what like MLK stood for. However, that assembly really like got a rise out of the student population because they were expecting to hear a lot like of something they could resonate with. And I know that some students did, but as like a student to friends of my other like classmates, I heard a lot of like unrest and complaints about this because they were really looking forward to something that they could relate to as either a mixed kid or African American or any other like race under that really like agrees with those principles that MLK was speaking towards. So just not rushing to solve something, and if you can't solve it right away, then figure something else out so that you don't make like a mistake along the way to like totally just like put off your student population, because it really did just make my school that day feel really like gloomy, I guess.
You three amaze me. You three literally amaze me. Question for all three of you, because you all presented different challenges that exist in our school system. And I'm wondering, how could, and it seems like one of the big things that's a common thread is how student voice can play a role in all of these things. So my question is, how can adults seek and capture student voice to help solve some of these school issues, right? Like, how can adults reach out to students to be a part of potential solutions? What would that look like? What would that sound like? How could adults go about doing that?
I think the first step to doing that is just to make sure the students are really comfortable with the teachers and comfortable with like sharing their perspectives. So, like making sure that if they say something about like what they really think, like they're not going to get any backlash from that. The teacher's not going to like hate them forever. So, that could be done a couple of ways. Number one, it could be like an anonymous survey. You could have like students from the school submit things anonymously so people won't know it's actually them, but they can submit their actual thoughts. And I think that's just like a great way to get about like student perspective in specific fields and specific like, I guess, issues.
Yeah, definitely some type of anonymous poll would be great, like just to hear, and like you could get the actual like percentages of what people think, and it could be anonymous or it could be like public if whatever students wanted to talk about. And then if you do have student leaders, have them talk to their friends and the other students that don't really have a voice and allow them to be their voice. Allow your student leaders and like your president or your vice president and all that to do their job and speak for their student body, instead of giving them like projects and problems to solve on the side that really aren't helping the school as a whole. And this whole like seminar or student panel is a great thing to start like getting student voices heard.
In terms of inequity and like being able to provide financial support for students, I think that schools should definitely reach out in some way to students that they know are financially struggling and just ask them what they need really, because I think that they would know best other than like other students or other faculty members, other administration members, the students who are in those positions would know best and like what change they need to do and what change needs to happen. And so instead of asking like other administrations and other like outside outside contacts, the talking to the students who are affected, like minority groups or financially struggling, those financially struggling students, those are the kids who will know best what they're going through. And I think they're the ones whose voices need to be heard the most.
You all are genius. You. Every time that I can't think you all can get more brilliant, then you just sort of say, "Nope, James. Here's more knowledge. Let us drop it because we got more to say." You all are amazing. Okay, we're gonna move to the next question. More people are gonna pop up. Oh, perfect. You're all here. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is gonna. I'm really excited to hear this. Okay, so what are your hopes for the future of education? Like when you dream about the future of education and you think about the future of education, what do you hope and wish? Like what would you like to see happen in the future in terms of education globally?
I think for me, thinking about like the future of education, I think my dream for it is just for school and for like education and like educating institutes to be a place where students can learn things that are applicable in their real lives. I know we're like slowly making a shift there already, but I mean, there's still a long way to go. So it would be all about teaching students the things they need to learn in order to be a successful adult and to be a successful person in the real world. So I mean, things that aren't taught right now, like but are super necessary. You know, like how do I file my taxes? What is a Roth IRA? What's the difference between a credit and debit card? You know, like when do I buy my first property? Like how do I do all of these like adulting things? I mean, in high school, that's when people like go from being like, I don't know, 14 to being 18, which is like the legal age of an adult. And without all of these different things, it's really hard to transition from like being a young person to being an adult without knowing anything. So I think it would be all about like teaching students the things they need to learn and also just really teaching them how to be a positive community member. Like how can they be a positive contribution to society? And it would be all about like teaching those things that are really applicable in real life.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, I'm 17, so in a year, like I'll be like 18, and I don't I don't want to say I don't know how to live in a community. Like, I do, but not everything I know I have. I hope that makes sense. But like, if I just like I don't know how to file taxes. I don't know how to use a debit card. I don't know how to use a credit card. All of these things have to be taught, and unfortunately, they aren't being taught. So if my parents, like, I don't know, kicked me out, I would not know how to survive because I don't know how to live in the society, which is really unfortunate. And also, I mean, do live in Seattle. There's, you know, a lot of people. There's a lot of different jobs opportunities, but like, I don't know how, like, I don't know how to just like. Do I go up to a store and ask for a job? Like, I don't know how to do that. How do you do that? That is something that has to be taught. You don't just wake up knowing, how to file taxes, how to, pay the IRS. Like, what is the IRS? Like, this stuff has to be taught, and unfortunately, that isn't being taught. And I feel like in a state like Washington, you know, we do, we are changing the way that we are teaching and educating, but I feel like it has to change like a 180. Like it has to really be more focused on what do I need after school than meeting standardized tests that for in the first place shouldn't be there. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because in my personal experience throughout school, I've always, not always, but in a lot of my Common Core classes, I felt that I'm wasting my own time, and that when I do get out of school, it's when I can actually start making headway to my goals and my dreams and aspirations. I can learn what I want to learn and apply that to my life and my career. Um, I like not being taught the things that I actually want to aspire to can be really detrimental to somebody who's really just trying to find their way to their career pathway. And
Okay. So something that I thought about when I went to was thinking about like what I want to see in education moving forward is more of a more comfortable atmosphere talking about mental health. So I think in the past year, mental health was a lot more of a, I guess, more of an important topic that educators at my school were thinking about implementing. But I think that where it fell short was it was very one dimensional and it was very tone deaf. A lot of it was like take breathing exercises or do yoga or get outside. And I feel like though those are coping mechanisms that can help mental health, I think a lot of the root of student stress comes from school. So when you have these coping mechanisms taught by the school that's causing the stress, it's kind of counterintuitive because we need like the coping methods, they're obviously useful, but what would help us a lot more is changing the system like at the root of the problem, and stuff like late work policies or the ability to take test retakes. I think test retakes is one of the main issues when it comes to like student stress. It's that when you fail a test or you don't do good on a test, teachers not having the option for you to improve your score, it just makes it feel like your world's like coming down, honestly, for a lot of students, because you don't know what to do at that point. You don't know, it could be like the last test of the semester and you have no other option but just to take the grade and have it affect your GPA. And so stuff like that, where that's the root of a student's stress, I think it needs to be changed systemically so that students' stress can be lowered that way instead of just offering like coping mechanisms to make it seem like you care about mental health, which I guess is like a bit harsh, but like that's just something that me and a lot of other students felt like was super tone deaf of my administration. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Um, hopefully sound's working back for people. I know some sound might have been in and out for some people, but hopefully we're back. Um, mental health and the things that you all are talking about are so vitally important, and in the way that you all talk about these and present these things to all of us is just beyond powerful. And I'm just so proud of all of you for speaking up and speaking out and sharing with us today. So we're going to move to the next question so we can make sure that we get to all of these questions today. But thank you all. Boom, here we go. All right, just Andrew is so good. He just makes things happen. I blink and then you all appear. All right, so here we go. Here's the next question. Pretty big question right now. How has the last 16 months impacted your education experience? And what have been some things that have been good, and maybe what are some things that have not been so great? But think about the last 16 months, almost 17 months now. Like, how has this all impacted your education experience?
For me, very honestly, these last 16 months have been like spot on perfect. Like for me personally, like 5 days of school a week, 6 hours is honestly just a lot, you know? Like the majority of the work I do and just like the things I'm advocating for, the things I'm involved in are outside of school. So I do things that aren't in school. And when school is running for like 6 hours a day and teachers don't allow me to like work on other things in their class, it's just it's very difficult to balance things when you don't have the time. And I think by like shortening the school days but still having like online options, I was still able to learn everything I needed to know. You know, I still have the same amount of knowledge. I was still able to take my AP successfully, do all of these standardized tests, but I had so much more time to work on outside projects, you know, like focus on my mental health, focus on myself, and just focus on the things that I want to work on. So I think that was something that was like way better for me. And then something that was worse was just like the lack of, you know, like human involvement, you know, like human interaction, just not being able to meet with my friends, not being able to see people, and just like seeing a black screen all day when I'm in class. But other than that, I think it was pretty solid.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I would say these last year and a half has been really wonderful for me. Um, it's been great to just be at home and really doing kind of school in a shorter time frame. I've also not been happier. Like I've been able to like get a good night's sleep, be able to do things I want to do. And I don't want to say that school is like, you know, like don't do school, but it takes up so much time. It takes up 8 hours, and then you have all this homework you have to do, and then you have to be like at school at a certain time, and if not, then that's a whole other deal. And then, you know, if you have something like a dentist appointment, you know, it's this whole like paperwork to, you know, leave school to make sure they're, you know, because they're in charge of you. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like I have considered this year because of COVID doing homeschool, and I'm still in the process of figuring that out. But, you know, I would have never thought of that option if COVID never hit, and it did. I mean, again, I live in Washington. We did have like the first case, I believe. And I'm not saying that, like, oh, you know, everyone drop out of school and homeschool. No, but, you know, this pandemic has taught me one thing, and that is life's short, do what you want. And I'm going to live by that motto until I die. And hopefully that's in a while. But that's just because, like, even though I've been at home, I've done so many things, you know, and I'm so proud of myself for getting out of my comfort zone and talking to people who I never would have dreamed of talking to unless I I just didn't know what else to do. Like, which is funny to say, but you know, it was a long process to connect with James, but that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have questions for my governor, and it's a whole long story. But I don't want to leave this opportunity to do this. I am interning with someone else. I don't want to leave these opportunities because school takes so long. It shouldn't be one or the other. It should be both. And that's something I think it's a kind of a pro and con. It's been good and bad this year, but that's one thing I want to take in the future and something I'm really proud of. And I think everyone here, you know, they don't want to have to leave AWSL because of school. Like, who wants to do that? Like, shouldn't be punished because you have some state requirements to fill, you know. So I think focusing on mental health is a big issue, and that's why I think shorter school days is a really good thing. And I want to say that COVID has really positively impacting my education this year, and hopefully it will not be negative next year with everything going back to normal, because that's not fair, and I don't think it should be. You know, now that we're out of a pandemic, everything's back to normal. We all lived through a pandemic, and we're gonna suffer those consequences until we are. We're gonna be, you know, how to socialize again. All of that kind of has to be retaught, relearned. And you're gonna think students are gonna be back like a snap of a finger. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not correct. So you're gonna have patience and all of that type of stuff. So I hope that teachers, educators, and other students are gonna be mindful of coming back to a place where, you know, gotta be social for 8 hours a day. So yeah, I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm gonna be quiet now, but everyone else continue.
So, Quentin, I don't think your sound's working. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think your sound's coming through fully clearly.
So what you can do, Quentin, is if you just refresh and come back in, it should pick you back up.
Yeah, so Q, just hit refresh. And we'll let Sarnika go. Quick Q, you refresh. Sarnika, you go. We'll get Q back.
Okay, perfect. I would actually kind of agree that I think the last 16 months have been pretty lovely, like school-wise. I mean, I've definitely struggled not getting to like see my friends or like scream like good morning to everyone at 7 a.m. when I walk into the band room. But as for like education, I have been doing so much better because I think the best part about being online was that the way teachers were assigning work, it was kind of like you do have your own time to do it because I still think that when you're in school 5 days a week for like 7 hours, it's not the best use of time because like personally for me and I noticed for a lot of other students it's like even if we get the assignment at the beginning of the class period it's pretty difficult to sit down in a room with 30 people and hearing like background noises and everything and get your work done. So for me it's like I'd sit there and I wouldn't get anything done until I got home for hours. And then basically my entire day was given to school. And I also like never really got sleep because of that, because there was extracurricular activities on top of that. But this year, because of the virtual setting, it's like I'd get an assignment and I'd be in my comfortable space working on it already. And I noticed that I took a more difficult load of classes this year and I got my homework done almost every day by like 6 or 7. And last year I pulled an all-nighter every week and I was still struggling to catch up. And this year it's like, I went into my classes and my teachers are like, it seems like you actually got sleep. And I was like, I did. Like, like, I don't know why I didn't for the last few years, but I got sleep now that we're online. And like, I think like for me, it's like the one thing I'm nervous about with the transition back to school is, can I handle the load of classes, the extracurricular activities, and taking care of myself? Because I know that if I have to choose one and I choose myself, then obviously my grades are probably going to start struggling. And so that was definitely the best part. I think like a lot of students also agree that like having to not see people like every single day consistently is sometimes really refreshing, especially when I get frustrated with teachers and I don't have to see them the next day because we're all online. So I would say that it has been a positive experience education wise.
Well, thank you three so much. Like I'm always I love hearing your perspectives and stories and you amaze me. You amaze me. You amaze me. And when all of you write books and have your own podcasts, I'll be subscribing to all of them. Okay, we're going to move to the next question because we've got about a little under 10 minutes left. All right, here we go. Sonika and Lakshmi, here we go. Lakshmi, here we go. So how have digital tools impacted your education experience? And what's worked really well, maybe what hasn't worked really well, but what have been some highlights for you of how digital tools and technology have supported you over the last 16, 17 months?
So I think in the digital tools that I've used over the span of the last couple of years, especially during online learning, the ones that made a difference were the ones that helped simplify learning and not complicate it. So an example of that is the platform Canvas, and that's what we use in my school district for the entirety of the 2020 to 2021 school year to help with remote learning. And Canvas is a platform where students had every class that they were enrolled in one platform. So we were able to access every class's assignments, tests, projects, answer keys, PowerPoints, grades, and then even communicate with our teachers and fellow students and it was all on one platform, which made it so much easier than prior years where we had to visit teachers' individual websites, and like we'd have like 7 of them that we had to go to, and we'd have to like find everything. And so having it all on one platform just made it just a lot more simple and a more streamlined approach, because I think for educators too, it might have helped because they didn't have to work on multiple different websites or other like applications. They had it all in one platform, which just made it easier for them to assign things, tests. Like you could just say, oh, the homework's on Canvas, the test is on Canvas, the video it's on Canvas. It's all on one place, and you don't have students going to different places, getting confused and possibly like losing assignments here and there. So.
I think for me, I would say like the best digital tool was like the online calendar that teachers were utilizing. Not gonna lie, like when school is in person and teachers tell you the deadline, I usually like I tend to not write them down because I'm like super forgetful. And I think the best part about online was that when they post an assignment like on Google Classroom, they would have to like attach like a due date, and then it's like I would never get confused about my deadlines, and it was a lot easier to meet them. And it was also a lot easier for me to like plan out my schedules because of that. And then in general, like I think personally, like I have a personal laptop, which obviously helped me out a lot. And I think that also goes back to like all the equity and equitable resources, because not a lot of students can say the same. But for me, it was the online calendar. And it was also the fact that digitally, I think teachers also, or at least in my opinion, with my teachers, they had a lot more time to spare to students because of the digital platform. And they would give you assignments, but then the rest of the time it would be like office hours. And I think that helped, because I don't think I would have preferred to stay virtual if I didn't get to have like that individual time with my teachers.
Boom. Okay, let's bring everybody. You two, amazing, amazing. Let's bring everybody back on, and I'm just gonna allow everybody. Hopefully, we get Q back. So I'm going to sort of throw a wrench in the last question. I just want to know, what is one piece of advice that you have for educators going into this next school year? If I give you each 60 seconds to say, hey, educators, here's one piece of advice we have for you to go into the next school year, what would it be?
I would say be flexible, be patient, and just be yourself around your students. Like, honestly, I think every student can agree to this, but we really love to see authentic teachers, even if you make mistakes from time to time. Like, we understand that. And it's so grounding to just see like teachers also making mistakes, because we're all human, we all make mistakes, and we all understand. So just be yourself. We as students really enjoy that, and we really appreciate that.
Okay, I guess I'll say something. So I think that for teachers going into the next school year, just like piggybacking on what Jean said, be patient, because we're all coming back from a year and a half online. Some of us struggled a lot last year, and it's been hard coming back to school. And so it's going to be a lot of like new stuff. Like we're going to be back with people. It's going to be a bit of a sensory overload. We have like people talking here and there. We got to communicate. We got to talk with people a lot more. So I think just being patient, and just making sure, like, just going easy a little bit for the first couple of months so that we can get settled to being in person, and get used to it a little bit more. So.
I would say acknowledge your students and validate their emotions, because that is incredibly important. And especially, again, going back to what both of you said, like when you're yourself in front of your students, it makes them feel a lot more comfortable about talking to you, because they start to not see you as just a teacher that's focused on getting content into your minds before the end of the school day, but they start to see you as a person that they can talk to about anything and everything. And so acknowledging them and simply telling them like good morning and smiling at them in the morning, it honestly does a lot. Or like asking how are you or have a good day. It's like when a teacher does that, students tend to remember.
Yeah, I have to agree with everything that's being said. I would say a couple of things I would recommend would be communication. I'm huge on communication. I don't know if you've picked up that. Communication, communicate, constantly communicate. It will be tiring, but it is worth it. Trust me, as a student, I love that. Be flexible, be understanding, and be be understanding, and that goes both ways. Like students understand where your teachers are coming from. Like they haven't taught in a classroom for a very long time. And then teachers understand that students haven't been in a classroom being taught for a very long time. So I'd say those are things to remember. So yeah.
I think you're on mute. I think you're muted right now. There you go.
Twice! This happened twice this week. Gene, you're the second one who called it out for me. Oh my gosh. I just wanted to say thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here. And to the students, thank you for being you. And thank you for sharing your hearts and stories and perspectives with us. I know it's not easy to do, but I think I speak for all the adults here when I say my brain is literally just overloading with ideas and thoughts and your brilliance. Okay. To the adults, I just want to say that there are Sonikas, there are Lakshmis, there are Samikshas, there are Jeans, and there are Quintons in all of your schools, from elementary to middle school to high school. These students are everywhere. Go find them and elevate them and raise their voice in your schools. Thank you, students. Thank you. You can't hear it, but there's hundreds of people applauding you right now. And I'll turn it over to Andrew, and hopefully we find Quentin somewhere in cyberspace. He's out there somewhere. We'll find him, and we'll give him a giant thank you too.
So I don't know if you are all reading the chat, but I can truly say that you've inspired our educators and are helping them get ready for this coming year. So I want to take hats off to all of you and thank you for spending some time during your summer, the last few days of summer, and being with us at the Future Focus Educators Summit. It is truly an honor to hear from students like yourself, and you can really see the leadership that you bring. James and Layla, thank you for helping us organize this, as well as being our MC with the students, and the wisdom that they shared is amazing. So if you get a chance, please read the chat and you can just see how inspired these educators are because of what you all just said. So from bottom of my heart, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing your wisdom. Ooh, somebody even says rock stars. I love that word. So with that, everybody, sessions are beginning in 2 minutes. Feel free to go find a session. Thank you for being with us. I'm going to stop the broadcast. And once again, thank you, students, for being amazing leaders. Oh, yes, I agree with Monica. Have a great year. Hopefully it's everything you need. How many of you are seniors this year?